fellow human beings, PowerGamer here. I have a cold right now, but that doesn't matter because nothing is going to stop me from finally fulfilling my childhood dream of playing Rocket Knight Adventures. You can tell I was a gifted child because I didn't even know this game existed back then.
Rocket Knight Adventures, less than an Earthworm Jim, more than an Arrow the Acrobat. Another example of the many forgotten mascot platformers that the 90s gave us, Rocket Knight Adventures didn't set the world on fire when it came out, but it has gained a bit more of a following in recent years, and while it's still not as beloved as some other cult classics at the time, the people that have played it do talk about it fondly. The game was developed by Konami, long before their reputation went in the toilet, and it was directed and designed by Nobuya Nakazado, who had previously worked on several of the Contra games. Unfortunately, that's all the backstory I could find. There is not much information on this game's development cycle, other than that it was made for the Sega Genesis, and while an SNES port was planned, that ended up being cancelled somewhere down the line. It was released on August 6, 1993 in Japan and the rest of the world throughout the next couple of months. Reception was pretty dang high for a game of that time period, but much like the development process, I couldn't find any info on the game's sales numbers. But they must have been fairly solid, as the game got a sequel that was also released for the Genesis, a spin-off that actually did come out on the SNES, a retro revival during the time that became the hot thing to do with old titles on the PSN, Xbox Live, and WiiWare era of the early 2010s, and even recently, the first 3 games were remastered for modern consoles. And the main character of the game, Sparkster, would end up as a bit of a mascot for Konami for a while, appearing in several promotional materials and a surprisingly large amount of other games.
I played a little bit of this game before, and I had fun, but I didn't even come close to finishing it, and it's been a while since I actually did something on the Genesis, so it seems like a decent one to go with.
So for a 16-bit Genesis game, we actually have quite a lot of backstory. The game takes place in the kingdom of Zephyrius, or Zubulus in the international versions, where many years ago, the king El Zephyrius, very clever, led his clan into defeating an evil empire that constructed a starship known as the Pig Star, which had the power to destroy planets.
Well, I don't know about you, but to me, this really sounds like they took just a little bit too much inspiration from Doctor Who.
The king then sealed the starship and protected the key by having it be guarded by a group of royal warriors known as the Rocket Knights. Eventually, the leader of the Rocket Knights, named Mifune, would find a young orphan possum named Sparkster and take him in, training him to eventually become the new leader after Mifune was killed by a corrupt Black Knight named Axel Gear. Zephyrus would then be invaded by another empire of pigs known as the Devantidos Empire. Their leader, Emperor Devilgus, is after the Pig Star, so Sparkster sets out to stop them and save the kingdom. Now, how much of this is actually shown in-game? Literally just this one shot of Sparkster drawing a sword and looking up at Emperor Devilgus.
I mean, I admire the dedication, but it would have been nice to actually see some of this stuff in-game. Still, the story is a pretty basic stop the evil empire plotline and not much more than that. It's fine, but nothing we haven't seen a million times before, or after for that matter.
The graphics are really solid for the 16-bit era. The colors and background details look great, and Sparkster has fantastic expressions and animations. I especially love the face he makes when he hangs upside down. That just looks funny. And the music is really cool too. It's got some great energy while still keeping that famous Genesis twang we're all familiar with. The game itself is a 2D action platformer. You move right as enemies come at you from everywhere, but Sparkster can defend himself with a sword that also shoots beams of energy. And it's not like Zelda where you have to have full health in order to shoot the beam. You can always do it, but hitting enemies with the actual blade does more damage. The base controls only let you jump or attack. However, if you hold down the attack button, you can charge up your rocket pack. Letting go allows you to do the spin attack for faster blows, and if you hold down a direction on the D-pad, you'll blast forward a bit. Though you only move in that direction, you can't move again until it wears off. The rocket blast ability is kind of a mixed bag. It can help you clear some gaps, do more damage to enemies, and you're immune to enemy fire when flying, which is nice, but it takes a while to charge up. Like I said, you can't change directions until you're done, which if you're going upward includes touching the ground, and you have to be holding the proper direction while you let go of the button. If you let go of the D-pad even slightly before, then it doesn't count. And speaking of which, the D-pad can be a little picky with which direction you're holding since it does not read diagonals very well. Still a solid idea, just gotta use some tweaks. The only other ability Sparkster has are hanging upside down from something long and thin, which leads to amusing level design, and as previously stated, this amazing face. He can freely swim up or down, which is nice, and sometimes he can grab a booster pack. This fully charges up Sparkster's rocket pack, allowing him to fly, and the game basically becomes a 2D shooter because Konami didn't have enough of those already. This only happens like 3 times in the game, but it's not a bad way to add some variety. Just fly around slashing and shooting enemies, and that's really about it. There's no extra abilities, and you can't do the charge attack, so in that regard it's a little disappointing, but since there's only a few of these sections, it's ultimately harmless. Well, for the most part. We'll get to that later. The only collectibles the game has are fruit, which restore your health, and gems, which give you bonus points.
This game has a pretty solid foundation to it, but I do think there is one thing that I'm not a fan of, and that's the controls.
I think Sparkster just had an oil change because he is really slippery on the ground and even more so when jumping. It is so easy to overshoot jumps because of how sensitive the control is, and if an enemy hits you, you slide back pretty far. Now, this game doesn't have that many intense platforming moments, but when it does, man, can it be really obnoxious. And it certainly isn't shy to use instant death traps like this rising lava in Stage 3 or these spiked robots in Stage 5, which I wouldn't have a huge problem with, but since this game is from the early 90s, you only have a limited number of lives. Hell, on easy mode, you only start out with 2. And the only way to get more is either by grabbing these 1-ups, which thankfully respawn every time you die, or by getting 60,000 points. Now, I do like how a non-arcade video game made points actually mean something instead of just a pointless number that goes up every time you do something slightly right, like, oh, jolly good little Timmy, you know how to use the A button, well done, here's a sticker. But 60,000 points is still a lot of points, so you're not going to be getting these bonus lives very often. You also only get 3 continues, which give you 2 more lives, and if you run out of those, it's back to the start of the game. Now, thankfully, using a continue puts you right back where you left off instead of starting the stage all over again, so that's nice, and I love how on the continue screen, the music just cuts off if you try and select no. While we're on the subject of game overs, I think this is a good time to bring up the difficulty. This game is pretty freaking hard. Some of these enemies can do pretty serious damage, and the levels are filled with hazards you have to avoid. Jesus Christ, that hurt a lot! And that's not even getting into the boss fights. Every stage is a mini-boss and an ending boss, both of which can wreck your keister. Their patterns can be really hard to read and even harder to react to, so you've got to be ready to fail a lot. The game only has 7 stages, but it can take a while to go through them, since, again, game overs require you to redo the whole thing. But while this game is hard, it still manages to remain fair. A lot of the challenges are pretty rough, but they don't feel cheap. You can genuinely feel yourself getting better as you play more of the game. Getting a better feel for the controls and developing the skills needed to take out the bosses does feel really rewarding. When you spend so much time struggling against certain parts of the game, being able to absolutely demolish them without breaking a sweat is immensely satisfying. I went from questioning if I could actually beat the 3rd stage to beating the first 4 stages without dying a single time. And every time you beat a stage, Sparkster freezes on a certain expression, which can result in some very amusing imagery.
Rocketknight Adventures is a great example of a fair challenge. I'm still not a fan of having to play the whole game all over again, but I did genuinely feel myself getting better and better the more I played. Even after getting 7 game overs, it felt like beating it was possible.
The first stage is a grass level, because I think it is a rule that every platformer has to open with a grass level. Well, that is until you reach the mini-boss, which is a pig in a tank that shoots bombs and has a flamethrower that can't hurt you if you get behind him. After he explodes, you fall in a river where he turns into the bouncing DVD logo, so just stand off to the side and use the spin attack. Oh, sorry, you got distracted for a second there. We then get our first flying section and crash into a tower which is on fire, and you gotta run from a wall of it. The boss is a robot centipede that pops out from the ceiling, and you gotta hit its head and avoid these robot spiders. We then see Axel Gear kidnapping Princess Sherry, since apparently she knows the location to the key. He takes off in a ship, and Sparkster goes flying into stage 2, which is a canyon. First you fight this robot, climb on some vines, and then fight a metal snake that's only weak on the tail. You then have to jump on these platforms to switch between the foreground and background, and you either kill this thing really easily or spend ages trying to get on the right plane. Go through a cave full of spikes, and then you go for a minecart ride where you need to duck to avoid more spikes and kill a bunch of these guys. You also go through a chicken coop, and one of them follows you. Get away from me, you bastard! Thankfully, he flies away during the boss fight, but I'm still gonna push the button. The boss is a train that only has 3 phases. First you hit the front while it shoots fireballs, then hit its hands while it's on the path above you, and then hit its back while avoiding blue orbs. It can be a little tricky, but you should get it down after a while. Stage 3 is when things really start to get tricky. The first section is a crystal cave with rising lava that kills you instantly. Not a fan of that, but it does have an interesting idea of how some platforms are blocked, so you have to use the lava's reflection to see them. That's kinda cool. Then we have more spike swimming, and you fight this pig in a crab suit. You gotta take out the claws and charge into the center while it snaps and shoots rings at you. The best method for this is just brute forcing it. Go behind each of the claws and mash the attack button as fast as possible. We then ride on this thing over more lava that doesn't kill you instantly and end with a boss against this robot fish. You gotta jump over moving platforms, avoid fireballs, and then hit the guy that pops out. The fight takes forever, and most of the challenge comes from the slippery controls. This is also the only boss fight to give you fruit, but I think only one of the bananas was actually possible to get.
Yeah, the boss fights in this game kind of go downhill from this point, which is a problem because we're only in the middle.
Sparkster exits the cave and sees Axel's ship, so he blasts off and crashes through it, leading to stage 4. You start reflecting bombs back against this guy, run through some wind while they plagiarize Donkey Kong, climb on these rails where you fight a fire-spitting tiki head that you can only hurt by dropping these bomb enemies on it, which is completely luck-based, and run through this hallway while enemies bounce you back. The boss is the guy from earlier who summons a giant robot that drops garbage on you, which can be really hard to avoid, and shoots these orbs, which is the only time you can hurt him. But after that, he starts running back and forth, and you gotta slash him. Make sure you're in the right spot, because then it's nearly impossible for him to hurt you. Otherwise, you can die and have to do the whole thing all over again. The ship goes down, and Axel escapes with Sherry, so Sparkster chases after them. Stage 5 opens with another flying sequence that is you dodge giant bullets and take out this lizard guy before again crashing into a tower. Here you have to run from spiked robots that kill you instantly, climb up as the stage comes falling down around you, and ride this elevator through nuclear gems. But then we reach the worst boss fight in the game. Axel hops in this giant robot you have to run away from that instantly kills you if you touch it, so you need to use the rocket dash as much as humanly possible. Then you have to hop in your own giant robot, which can be very easy to slip off of, and have a boxing match. Just move back and forth and smack him with the chain arms, but not only is the hit detection really screwy, but you have to hit him 7 times while he only has to hit you 5 times. And that's just on easy mode. I spent ages on this garbage, and part of me was tempted to throw in the towel, especially when we both died at the same time, meaning I still lost. Sparkster saves Sherry as Devil gets blasted off toward the pigstar because he must have the key by now. Sherry then gives Sparkster the ability to fly in space, and he takes off after him. Stage 6 is entirely a shooter level where the game just becomes full-on Gradius, or Life Force, whichever you prefer. This level is insanely frustrating since there's only one checkpoint. Now it is much shorter than the other levels, but it can still be really annoying. The mini-boss, if you can even call it that, is this pink robot that shoots a giant laser, but the main boss is garbage. It's a giant ship outfitted with 4 small cannons, and you need to take out both this door thing and the mouth part, which breaks it, letting you hit the center. The problem is that for some baffling reason, just slightly touching any part of the ship causes you to lose half of your life. And sometimes it feels like you didn't actually touch it, so death just comes out of nowhere. Like the last boss fight, this one drove me nuts, and it is all because of this. Seriously, why does just touching the boss kill you in 2 hits? This is worse than Mega Man 5. And if all that wasn't bad enough, there's a second phase where it turns into a robot that shoots bullets and a blue laser that follows you. Then it exposes the core, which lets you hurt it, but then it starts jumping towards you, which will still take half of your life if it touches you, and if you die, you gotta start the whole fight all over. Word of advice, make sure you fly into the top left corner, because that is the only spot where he can't hurt you.
You know, I'm starting to see why kamikaze pilots were such a thing in World War II, because if just slightly grazing a plane hurts you that much, I can only imagine what crashing them would be like.
After that, Sparkster finally reaches the Pig Star, and Stage 7 immediately opens with a fight against Devilgus, who moves insanely fast and shoots fireballs at you. He can only be hurt by the rocket dash, so be ready, and also avoid his body when he explodes, because that can kill you. But here we learn he's actually a robot, and have to hurt him again while avoiding his limbs. Continue through the Pig Star, fighting more robots, and eventually you find Axel. The two of you have a slashing match before he blows a hole in the wall and starts flying around shooting missiles and charging at you. You gotta stay on the first 2 poles, because if he knocks you off the third one, you die instantly. While he's firing the missiles, just keep slashing him, and then time the charge attack properly to get him without taking damage. We then fight some more robots, and eventually find the core of the Pig Star, which was commanding Devilgus this whole time. This fight has 3 phases, and throughout all of them, you're in this room with lower gravity, which lets you jump higher, and his only weak spot is this little boxing glove that pops out around him. First he just bounces, and you have to avoid him, then he starts shooting these rings and lightning blasts, and then he uses this weird chain thing. You're gonna want to use the rocket dash as much as possible, since while it's hard to aim, it does more damage and makes you immune to certain attacks for a bit. This fight is rough, but eventually I manage to win. The core then blows up, causing the Pig Star to go down, so we run into this escape pod and flee as it explodes.
Well, it took me a while, but I finally managed to beat the game. Oh wait, we're not done yet?
Yeah, the core's remains chase after you in the escape pod, and you can't fight back, so all you can do is dodge its arms and body. It's not super hard, but while your health is restored, if you die, you have to do the last fight over again. Genuinely, why is this here? If you dodge its attacks long enough, eventually it'll burn up in the atmosphere and finally be destroyed for good. Sparkster brings Sherry back to the castle and flies off to his next adventure. The credits roll, but afterwards, you're encouraged to try on a harder difficult no.
Adventures is a really good game. Aside from the slippery controls and a few annoying boss fights, it's a fun, engaging, and tough but fair platformer that any fan of the genre is sure to get a kick out of, and with it being ported in modern consoles, there's no better time to play it. Well, okay, aside from maybe World War II, because people were kinda glum back then.